Adam, we're already into week 3 of the football season, and it's another rivalry week, CSU week coming up. And it was funny. Coach Prime said, "Hey, I just had to get used to one rivalry. Now you want me to get used to a second one, learn about the second one." But a lot of these new guys not used to this CSU rivalry, but it hasn't been quite the rivalry that Nebraska's been. Are you excited for CSU week?
I've always liked this game a little bit more than when you talk to a lot of longtime Colorado fans, because I would always go back to the fact that in the Pac-12, Colorado just didn't have a natural rival, and it was at least kind of a consolation prize in that sense, I guess. I get it. They're not a Power 5 opponent, so you want to be a big brother, and there's nothing wrong with that, but the more you can play up the rivalry aspect, the more fun it is. That's the way I've always felt, and I'll still remember the time that Colorado State won here in Folsom Field and they were stomping on that logo. You don't want to see that again if you're a Colorado fan. So at least you got to take it seriously, because, there's now all of a sudden really high expectations. Colorado, it's kind of flipped a 180 here in the last 3 weeks, and now all of a sudden they're expected to win big. And I don't expect motivation to be an issue for this team as long as Coach Prime is here, but even he admits that, hey, I'm still kind of getting my bearings around this Rocky Mountain Showdown, because he wanted to really focus on that Nebraska game, but now it is time to turn the page. And I like how honest he is as far as that goes. He's not going to just make something up, and he'll do his research and he'll have these guys ready to go on Saturday.
Well, we know that Shedeur Sanders would not like seeing CSU players stomp on the middle of the field with the Buffalo, so we know that. But this team, to your point, they flipped a 180. 2 weeks ago, going to week 1, I know it's totally different opponents, but they're basically a 3-touchdown underdog. This week, they're, a 17-point favorite, 17, 20, whatever.
Mine's even moving up to like 3 touchdowns now, so.
So it's basically 3-touchdown underdog to 3-touchdown favorite in a couple-week period. Things have changed. I mean, the expectations are higher now. Have your preseason expectations changed for this team based on the last 2 weeks?
Well, first off, I'm surprised that, and I won't be surprised if this line moves quite a bit more. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even be shocked if it's 28 points by the time this kicks off, because these books, Vegas, all the online odds makers, they took a big hit last week with all that money coming in on Colorado, and that Nebraska line didn't make sense. It should have been more towards what we were picking, kind of in that 2-touchdown, 17-point range, I thought. I think that's going to keep moving. My expectations have changed. I thought this was going to be a 6-6 football team this year. And now the new over-under for Colorado is 6.5, which it's funny. I think this is a 8, 9, 10 win football team. Again, we keep going back to the fact that they haven't played their best football. They're going to get better. Now, the opponents are going to get better. It's funny, the Pac-12 waited to basically fall apart to really hit the stride out there on the actual field. Right. 8 Pac-12 teams ranked in the AP Top 25 this week. The most in conference history. I think only the second time in AP Top 25 history that there's been 8 teams from the same conference in the top 25. So there's going to be a lot of tough games on the schedule. So I know there's some that might still call me a non-believer, say 8, 9, 10 wins, but that's because I respect some of the teams that Colorado is going to be playing down the stretch. And another encouraging thing is that there's like this extra little influx of players that they're getting into the mix. Now, it didn't sound like at Coach Prime's press conference that Travis Jay and Brendan Gant are going to be out there on game day anytime soon, but we saw them on Sunday getting back out there, getting back in the mix. And so Jawan Mitchell started last week. You got him into the mix there, and so Caleb Fourier maybe at tight end. You get in the mix, Alton McCaskill at running back. That's another reason to be encouraged, and another reason my expectations would change a little bit in terms of thinking that they're going to win more games. But Shedeur Sanders just can't get hit as many times as he did against Nebraska going forward. That's the one thing in the ground game, getting that going as well. I'm not as concerned with the ground game. I really think that's going to get going at some point. But, man, you can't see Shedeur getting hit that many times.
Right. I will add one other guy we haven't seen yet, and we'll see if we see him this year, is Cormani McClain. And obviously the 5-star recruit. I think Coach Prime's probably coaching him a little tougher than he would maybe a 3-star recruit, because he sees greatness in him. But we haven't seen him yet. And do we see him at some point this season where he bolsters that secondary? So, there's a lot of those guys we haven't seen. So it'll be interesting to see, this team as they evolve. But you're right, to the protection. I went back and looked I was watching the game. Shador really struggled early in that game. He wasn't really sharp the first quarter and a half, really up until the Tavares Dawson touchdown that he threw, the 30-yarder late in the first half. He wasn't really that comfortable, it didn't seem. He got sacked 4 times during that stretch. After he kind of settled in, he was only sacked 3 times, which I know it's still 3 and 4, but he settled in. I thought the protection was a lot better once he got comfortable in the game. Would you agree?
Yeah, and to Coach Prime's point and some of the questions that have been asked about the sacks, it wasn't all necessarily 100% on the offensive line. I thought there were times the offensive line actually played pretty darn well on Saturday. Jared Christian, Lichtenham, the Pac-12 offensive lineman of the week. And Van Wells.
Weird to see that on a week that you give up 8 sacks, right?
It is, but he's played really solid football. I think Pro Football Focus, again, you kind of take some of their stuff with a grain of salt, but they have him with the 12th best pass protection grade after 2 weeks. So there was a lot of pressure on him coming into the season, and he's lived up to those expectations early on. Now, Van Wells, I don't know how you read into what Coach Prime said when I asked him about his status going forward. That made me think that he might not play this week because he said he's healing up. Hank Solinskis goes in on the first play and goes downfield and makes a really nice block. Right. Now, that's a tough position to be in as a true freshman, but that's some positive signs for the future that he was able to come in there and make a few plays in his first appearance in such a ruckus-type atmosphere.
Well, a situation that Van Wells was in last year as a true freshman, right? And I did read the same thing, that maybe Van Wells save him this week against CSU. Let's get ready for conference play. Coach Prime has talked about with Alt McCaskill specifically, but I think in general, we need guys for the stretch run because we're going to make a run here. That's what he keeps saying. So I think you can hold out Van Wells, and even if he's somewhat healthy, dress out. If we need you, we'll play you, but let's hope to get through this one without him. He's one of those guys that seems to be in that category. But anything else from today's press conferences? We talked to Xavier Weaver, but we've heard from him a lot lately. Not saying it wasn't great today, but boy, that guy is so fun to watch, and he's been a big-time player and a security blanket for Shador.
Well, just this feeling that you get around here that these guys all expected to be 2-0 in this situation right now, and so all this attention doesn't really seem to be phasing them, which is key because, you talk about 60 Minutes is coming back to Boulder this week. When is the last time they've done a feature on someone in back-to-back years? I would imagine that list is pretty short. In College Game Day, obviously, Fox Big Noon Kickoff again. So the way that these guys are all handling this has impressed me.
Yeah, and Big Noon here for the second week in a row. Really, third week in a row following CU because they were down in Fort Worth. But Adam and I will be back later in the week for more analysis.